Hi, and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. The case of Mark Pearson shocked the entire country as far as malicious prosecutions goes. A South London man was walking through Waterloo Station when he was accused of sexual assault, despite CCTV footage showing that he committed no crime. Mark is here with us today to talk about his case in more detail. Mark, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
Hi David, doing well.
Yeah, you and I have both been accused, but is it fair to say we're both friends as well?
Very much so. I've known you for about 6 months now, is it?
That's right. Well, I actually called you right after my case ended and said, you know, Mark, I think you're not alone in being like a sole falsely accused guy out there. And you said, David, like there's thousands of us.
I have to say, you're not the first to contact me. I've had hundreds.
Right, because I mean, you're such a well-known guy, and I feel like your case was one of the earlier cases in all these sort of false accusations, and you've been on TV, and you know, a lot of people have seen that CCTV footage of you just walking through the station, you know, without doing anything to anyone, and yet you went through this big trial ordeal.
I think I was probably one of the first to go public with it. That was because I felt it needed to be spoken about. But what irritates me is that was 2 years before Liam Allen happened, so you know, they should have taken some notice of what was going on after my trial.
Well, can you tell us a bit about how your case unfolded, Mark, for those that don't know what happened?
So in 2014, December the 3rd, a woman walked through Waterloo Station and went to the enquiries desk and told the person, well, she made an enquiry about where she wanted to go, and then said, oh, by the way, I've been assaulted, do you think I should report it? So the person was a bit taken aback and said, yes, of course. So the woman went to work and went back through Waterloo several hours later and reported a sexual assault to the police, the transport police of Waterloo Station. 2 months later, on 5th of February 2015, I was arrested at home in the early hours by a team, I think it was 4 or 5 officers, and they said, can we come in? And I said, what's this about? And they said, we're arresting you for sexual assault. And they arrested me there and then. I had no idea what it was about. I couldn't even remember the date that they mentioned. You know, I mean, you wouldn't. How would you remember 2 months ago? They then took me to the transport police station in central London, and I was put in a cell. I was processed, fingerprints photographed. I had to wait for a duty solicitor because I just never needed a solicitor before. And then I was interviewed. It must have been 3 or 4 hours later, for an hour, and then I was put on bail. And
during that interview, did they put any evidence to you that you'd committed an offence?
My Oyster card was shown to, well, an Oyster card, and I was asked, is this your Oyster card? I presumed it was my Oyster card. It looked like any other Oyster card, and that was it basically. Oh, I was shown a very blurry photograph of an image which looked like me, but I wasn't sure because it was a black and white photocopy of a CCTV image.
So they didn't show you
the
CCTV?
They said, is that you? And I said, well, it looks like me, but I can't be 100%.
Okay.
They took that as some sort of denial, I think.
Okay. And then you were charged subsequently?
I was charged 4 months later, in June 2015. But prior to that, I did a video lineup, an identity parade, and the woman in question didn't pick me out of that parade.
Okay. So why would they go ahead with you if she didn't pick you out?
No idea. Her description of the person that supposedly assaulted her was 6'2" with hair. She made a point of saying that she saw this person above everyone else as they were walking towards her. And
did you have any hair at that point?
No, I've always been half bald. Yeah, bizarre, just very weird.
So how did everything unfold from this point? You were not picked out of the lineup, but you were charged, and then what transpired?
Well, I had to wait for another 3 or 4 months to see the actual CCTV footage, because I hadn't seen it at that point. Even when I was charged, I still hadn't seen what I was supposed to have done. So we got the footage and her statement in September 2015. I sat and looked through it with my solicitor and read what they call the ABE, which is her statement. And we just couldn't see anything in the images. We couldn't work out what was supposed to be. We didn't even know who she was in the images because she wasn't marked up. Okay. So we couldn't work out what I was supposed to have done. I mean, it was obvious it was me at that point. I could tell it was me. But I couldn't understand what I was being charged with.
And what was the charge? Did they write out a definition?
Well, they kept changing that. It started at sexual assault with penetration. Okay. Then that was changed just after my charging to sexual assault with penetration and sexual assault without penetration.
So which didn't make sense. Both or neither?
Both.
Yeah.
Which didn't make sense because if it was sexual assault without penetration, she would have been lying in her statement. Okay. Because she was very insistent that it was with penetration. She said 3 fingers. Okay. Through clothing, through several layers of clothing. So I think she was wearing a coat and a long jumper dress going down to her knees. Was she on these CCTV images as well? Or? Yeah, she was on the image. She was on it. Although she didn't recognise herself in court. Okay. She said, "That's not me. I don't wear boots like that." So you went to court, and what kind of criminal sentence were you facing in court? 9 years. 9 years, really, yeah. Prior to that, because we looked at the CCTV and couldn't see anything, we got an expert to look at it for us, and he just concluded that her statement in no way fitted what was there, and that it wasn't possible. You know, she said that the sexual assault lasted 2 or 3 seconds. It took half a second for me to walk past her, so it wasn't possible. Right. And he said that in a statement, a written statement, which we sent to the CPS and asked them to drop the case. They just went ahead. They tried to even stop us using the statement. So we had to get the expert to come to court. And so just backing up, you've not been picked out of the lineup. You don't match the description of what she's written. No. You've presumably told them you're not guilty. Yeah. The evidence shows that, you know, from a physics point of view, it's not possible because of this half-second time delay and the 2 to 3 seconds for the penetration. So why were you charged? No idea. An agenda, obviously. Right. They've got their own agenda. They want to get as many prosecutions as possible. For them, it's worth just taking every case they can to court and see what happens. You know, if they get a prosecution, great. If they don't, they don't. There's no consequences. Yeah. How did your trial unfold from the start? So the first day we just spent all day trying to find a jury because they didn't have enough jurors, so that was a wasted first day. Second day, her statement video of the what they call ABE, Achieving Best Evidence, was shown to the jury, and it was quite convincing. She's an actress, she's very good at speaking to camera. Then after lunch she came in because she'd been working. She found it kind of an inconvenience to come to court because she was filming and she didn't really want to, but the judge asked her to actually appear and not do it on a video link. Okay. And she was behind a curtain. I couldn't see her, and the way she held herself and spoke, she just came across as nuts, and the jury could see that straight away. The point where she said, "But that's not me in the images, I don't wear boots like that," and then she saw an image of me and said, "But he had hair. If it's the guy with hair, why is it me that's been arrested?" Because there was a guy behind me in the images. You can see those in the images. There's a much taller guy than me. Immediately passes her as she turns around. Okay. So that's what she said in her statement, that the guy walked past and she turned straight around. Although she said other things like, everyone turned. She screamed at one point, she said, and everyone turned to look. But you can't see that in the images. But then she said she couldn't make a sound later on in the statement. She said she froze and she couldn't make any sound. So she's just contradicting everything the whole time, pretty much. The whole statement was very bizarre and didn't add up. And did you then speak in court? Yeah, I was asked various questions. The prosecuting barrister inferred that because the CCTV only took an image every second, there would have been hundreds of milliseconds of time for me to carry out the assault if you added them all together. But that didn't make sense because you can't stretch out a 1 second interval to 2 or 3 seconds. Because the judge had asked the actress to touch the bar of the curtain she was behind to show how long the assault took. And she held it there for 3 seconds. So at that point you could see the jury just didn't believe it because...
So did you feel that you were going to be cleared at this point? Or?
Yeah, on the day before, it ran over and the verdict was on the Friday, the 5th of February. So the day before that it had reached a point where it was pretty clear that the jury weren't having any of it.
And then you were cleared, is that correct?
Yeah.
And how did it make you feel at that point?
Numb. So I've heard people say they burst into tears or they collapsed or they. I just thought, what a waste of time. Yeah. What a pantomime.
And do you know how much British taxpayers spent prosecuting?
It must have cost hundreds of thousands.
Really? Yeah. It's any value for money there for the taxpayer?
None whatsoever.
People consider you to be a bit of a leader in the falsely accused movement. Following your acquittal, what have you done to sort of speak out about malicious prosecutions or to try to better understand what happened in your own case?
Well, Erin Pitsey asked me to do a conference for men's issues, and that was July 2016. That was a few months after my trial. So it wasn't, I had to think about it because it was very soon after my trial and I wasn't sure I could do it. But I thought I had to do it then because the next one was going to be abroad. So it was a one in a chance opportunity to do it. So I spoke at that and I got a lot of feedback, and because they posted the video of it online, I got a lot of people contacting me. So now I'm sort of a conduit. I put people in touch with other people from various falsely accused support groups like FASO and FACT and Accused.me UK. And I went to a meeting where they all kind of met and set up Unfounded, which is unfounded.org, which is a group.
What's that?
It's a group of groups. So it's all the disparate falsely accused support groups came together and decided to try and work together to change the law and to act on the Richard Henriquez report, which was in 2017. He made various recommendations about not treating the accused person immediately as though they're guilty.
Well, also, and that all accusers must be believed, right?
Exactly.
That's the Alison Saunders policy, that you have to believe the accuser regardless.
The listen and believe attitude, which goes back, I think that goes back to 2002, I believe. The Mets, there was an internal memo in the Met police who decided that was going to be the thing to do, was to believe anyone who makes an accusation. So rather than investigate in a neutral way, they automatically believe the person who's making the accusation and then start from there, which doesn't make any sense because that immediately means that the person being accused
guilty until proven innocent, right?
Yeah, so that's just a reversal of due process, and that's just wrong. And this is what Richard Henriquez said in his report.
You know, something I've learned from you is that, you've introduced me to various other falsely accused people, and I was sort of the impression that, maybe these would be some sort of they didn't commit this sex crime, but they're a gang member or they're a delinquent or they're a troublemaker in the community. But it's the total opposite. All these people that I've met since I've been cleared are the most law-abiding, patriotic, genuine, down-to-earth, great citizens like you and like lots of others that you can imagine. And so, why have like 4 policemen coming to arrest you at dawn when you're, just a totally just normal, genuine, law-abiding guy?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the issues I made in my complaints. Soon after my trial, I started an IPCC complaint, or it's now the IOPC.
So what is that?
So that's, if you want to make a complaint against the police, you approach the IOPC, and they don't...
Do you know what that stands for?
The Independent Police Complaints Organisation.
Okay, so it's where you go if you want to appeal, bad police treatment.
Yeah. So they very rarely investigate things themselves. They pass it back to the police force involved, and they usually have a body that looks at complaints, a professional standards body. And they usually investigate themselves and often just come up with nothing and say nothing was wrong, which is what happened in my case. Then you get to appeal that. You get 2 appeals. So the first appeal I've made, and we sent it back to the IOPC. This was a guy that was helping me do that, a guy called James Barnett, who runs a company called Barnett Survivors Limited. And he was brilliant. Erin Pitsey put me in touch with him. And
okay, so you made this complaint against the police, and what's happened with that?
So they brought it. The IOPC brought in an outside force, supposedly outside. There's still a transport police force, but they're from York, and they re-investigated, and they've upheld 5 of our 20 complaints so far. So each complaint is numbered; it's allocated a number. And
so 5 of those are
so 5 have been upheld. They all concern the officer in charge who did various wrongdoings. He's got to go to a misconduct hearing. I've been invited to that. But at the moment he's only being charged with misconduct. We want it to be gross misconduct.
So then he's fired, presumably.
He made various strange decisions, like changing the height of the person she mentioned to fit me rather than the 6'2". Of what she said. He did other various things that didn't fit with their regulation. So far he seems to be the patsy, but we think there are senior officers that should have been guiding him that have made mistakes as well. So we're trying to get other people charged with misconduct.
So who's to blame for the misconduct? Is it the police or is it the Crown Prosecution Service or?
Well, the way it works is that you have to find out through the police first what went on, and then try and find out if the CPS did anything wrong from that, because it's the police's job to investigate in a neutral way and send that to the CPS. So if the CPS has sent a file that is wrong or misleading, the CPS can claim that it was the police. But in my case, it was very obvious from the CCTV that nothing had happened, so the CPS should have known immediately when they saw it. But they chose to carry on with it. And they even tried to block the evidence that we had.
Do you think as a result of you speaking out and other people as well that things have improved, that these miscarriages of justice aren't going to happen anymore?
I hope so. I mean, I think Liam Allen's been more successful with that. I think mine was kind of ignored by the mainstream media. It was in a lot of newspapers and some daytime programmes, but most of the media ignored my case.
Do you feel the media treated your case fairly, or just without publicising it too much? Do you feel like when you were on TV
I think they were only interested because it was an actress involved, and it appeared to be a well-known actress at first, but I don't think anyone knew who she was in the end. So they used the story because it was interesting from that point of view. I don't think they were concerned about what was happening in the judiciary and in the courts and the CPS.
And what are your feelings towards false accusers then, Mark, or the false accuser in your case? Or do you think it's really the police, she didn't necessarily pick on you, but the police assigned it?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. It depends whether the person making the accusation is a bit nuts or whether they're actually making a malicious accusation. I mean, I believe, from what I've heard from other guys, there's a lot of malicious accusations in divorce cases where the wife will make accusations in order to get legal aid.
Or to get child custody?
Yeah, both, really. I mean, I've heard it's much easier to get legal aid if you make an accusation of sexual assault or battery.
And so do you think people who make false allegations should be held legally accountable?
Yeah, in most cases, yes. I mean, if it can be shown that they've made an accusation maliciously. I mean, of course, there are some people that are just disturbed. I mean, that's the phrase that Paul Gambaccini's used, that they're unhappy people, and I don't know what you do in that respect. I think there should be some sort of register to put names on there if people make
so people know,
successive accusations, like the woman that made 9 accusations, Gemma Beale.
Yeah, Gemma Beale. I read about that. She made all these different accusations. Guys kept going to jail. And yet she keep making them.
Well, it just makes you wonder at what point the police thought, well, hang on a minute, how
when
come?
Is she accountable for
9 separate incidents.
Yeah. And then she was jailed.
Yeah.
Finally.
Good.
After 9 incidents.
Yeah. Which is good, but she's a rarity. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. So what can you tell the audience about what you've learned from this experience, Mark? If you've got guys out there that feel like they've been falsely accused, like you were, what should they be doing to give themselves the best chance of succeeding in their case?
First thing is get yourself a good lawyer. I think that's really important. I mean, I'd made the mistake. I had a duty solicitor at my interview who was useless, and I switched to another solicitor who wasn't that good either. So I got a good solicitor through a friend of a friend, and he was great. You know, he took me through the trial. So I would say go on the attack. You've got to defend yourself straight away. You know, that's all you can do.
And do you see a time where these false accusations are going to sort of ebb away and the Crown Prosecution Service won't pander to these people, or are they just going to get worse?
It's hard to say with this new guy at the CPS whether he's going to change things. I mean, he seems to admire what Alison Saunders did. This is like the guy next hill, the terror guy. Sure. Yeah, he started by saying he was proud of what Alison Saunders had done, so I can't see it changing at the moment.
Okay, so you think, how can men protect themselves from these sort of things? If you're a regular guy, you've never been involved in anything like this before, should you be taking steps, or what steps should you be taking?
Yeah, record everything, keep emails, keep text messages, whatever you can do to keep yourself safe. I mean, that's all you can do. But even in my case, I'd never met the woman. I just walked past somebody. I mean,
so it wasn't that
what could I have done?
Animus towards
I mean,
you.
I was lucky that I had CCTV images. If I hadn't, I could well be in prison now.
Yeah, and do you ever walk back through Waterloo Station these days?
I have to get to work some days. Yeah, I mean, I try to avoid it, but obviously I have to. It's just one of the biggest stations in London. I go a different way to the one I used to go.
Bad omen.
Yeah.
You don't want to go. Don't want deja vu. Just finally, then, Mark. How's this changed your life, and how do you look upon these sorts of? How do you look upon the justice system of Great Britain now compared to the way you did before?
It completely opens your eyes. You imagine that anyone who goes as far as to go to court to a trial must have done something. I mean, that's just human nature, you know. If you see somebody at the back of a court in a bulletproof glass room as though they're dangerous, you think they're...
With security all around.
Exactly, with a guard standing next to them,
guns.
locking them in, searching them when they go in and out. You presume that to get that far they must have done something, or there must be something to it. But obviously if it happens to you and you know you haven't done anything, you're very aware that it's quite easy to get into that situation. It's not difficult, and it's not rare.
No, it's not.
This figure of 2 to 8% false accusations is just not true.
There's a lot of guys, we've met, you've met, I've met, just legions of people out there. And of course, it's also families, wives, mothers, fathers,
people every year are being affected by this.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem, and I'm grateful for you speaking out on it. You've certainly inspired me a lot, and I know you, and I know what a great guy you are. So just want to say thanks for being here, and thanks for your friendship as well.
Thank you, David.